So anyone who's been following my channel will know that I recently took a 2-month hiatus. And in those 2 months while I was gone, something rather peculiar happened. Anyone who's been on YouTube as of recently may have noticed that the dislike count on videos is, well, no longer there. The other day, I decided to revisit my most controversial video, as I was curious to see how many dislikes it has accumulated, only to find that the dislike count had vanished entirely. Now, at first I thought this was some kind of a bug or a glitch or an error, something like that. But upon doing additional research, I found out that this is an actual change that YouTube decided to implement. YouTube has gotten rid of dislikes. Well, sort of. You see, the dislike button is still there. You can still click it, it still registers a dislike on YouTube's backend, so it shows up in the video analytics, and YouTube's algorithm will be less likely to recommend similar content to you in the future. What YouTube got rid of is the publicly visible dislike count. What that basically means is that like to dislike ratios are still visible on the creator's end, but it's hidden from the viewer. Now, to say that this caused controversy within the YouTube community would be an understatement. Over the years, YouTube has been notorious for doing various things to frustrate its creators. From their broken and frequently abused copyright system, to demonetizing videos without reason, to making frequent and pointless updates to their UI without any prior notice. But of all the bullshit that YouTube has done over the years, this in particular seems to have really struck a nerve with folks, and with good reason. YouTube just gave the axe to a very crucial tool that enables users to give feedback on content, and did so with very little prior notice. No wonder people are upset about this. And of course, this decision raises a lot of questions. The publicly visible dislike count has been a feature of the platform for the past decade, and hasn't really been causing any problems. Why would YouTube just all of a sudden decide to get rid of it? Especially with how much backlash that decision's causing for them. And furthermore, what's the point of keeping the back-end functionality of the dislike button? I mean, if YouTube wants to get rid of the dislike feature for their platform, why not just get rid of it whole hog? So these are some of the questions we'll be exploring in today's video. Now, I'm aware that this issue has already been covered at length by other YouTubers and that I'm a little bit late to the party here, but there are aspects of this issue that I feel aren't getting the proper coverage. I, along with a lot of my fellow YouTubers, have a very strong hunch that there's more to this decision than YouTube is telling us. So I'd like to take some time to look at both sides of the issue, then deliver my own opinion. And hopefully you'll be able to form your own based on what was presented in this video. So it goes without saying that when YouTube rolled out this change, there were, as you could imagine, a lot of questions and concerns from the YouTube community. So YouTube decided to release a video, sort of explaining their decision and trying to set the record straight, maybe clear up some of the controversy. The video is presented by a Mr. Matt Koval, and in case you're not familiar with who that is, he's YouTube's creator liaison, which is a position that sort of revolves around communication between YouTube and its creators. Now, I've never heard of this guy prior to this whole dislike fiasco. And it looks like the same goes for a lot of other YouTubers, which is kind of strange. You would think since this guy's entire job is to communicate with YouTube creators, he wouldn't be so obscure. But anyways, let's have a look at this video and see what Mr. Koval has to say about this decision to hide the publicly visible dislike count. Before we get into the video, however, I just want to quickly state for the record that I think that even Matt Koval himself isn't convinced that this is a good idea, because you can tell pretty much right off the bat that he's feeling pretty awkward about having to do this video. From the look on his face, to the tone in his voice, to his stiff body movements, you can clearly tell that he's not enjoying being the one who has to deliver this news. Truth be told, I actually kind of feel sorry for him. He's basically being put in the crosshairs for a decision he didn't make and most likely has nothing to do with.
Hey folks, you may have seen a while back that YouTube announced it was experimenting with making dislike counts private to only the creator of the video.
So the way that Mr. Koval is describing the situation makes it seem as if YouTube went through some sort of effort to make creators aware of this decision before it was implemented. But for a lot of YouTubers, this wasn't really the case. The decision came as a total surprise to them. They just woke up one morning, checked their YouTube page, and then bam, dislikes just mysteriously vanished overnight. This is something that YouTube has actually been pretty notorious for, implementing massive changes to their platform while giving their users little to no prior notice.
Now, if you're like me, you were surprised by that.
So keep in mind here that Matt Koval is YouTube's creator liaison. His entire job, what he's literally paid to do, is to act as a line of communication between YouTube as a platform and its content creators. So you would think that if anyone on YouTube's team would be aware of this decision, it would be him. But no, this came as a shock to him as much as it did the rest of us. I think this more or less confirms the hunch floating around the YouTube community, which is that the higher ups at YouTube have no idea what the fuck's going on their own platform.
I mean, I've always thought seeing the number of dislikes on a video helps us know as viewers if it's a good video or not.
So right off the bat, we can tell that this guy does understand what the problem here is. There are a lot of issues that come about from removing the dislike count. The biggest one being that by removing the publicly visible dislike count, you are robbing the YouTube community of a tool they can use to quickly and efficiently not only provide feedback on a video, but also roughly ascertain the quality of said video. The biggest advantage to the like and dislike rating system is that it gives YouTube viewers a quick and easy way to assess the quality of a video before they watch it. Now obviously the like to dislike ratio isn't going to be a 100% accurate indication of video's quality for various reasons that we'll get into, but it does give YouTube users at least some kind of a rough way to get an idea of what they're in for when they go to watch a video. And obviously getting rid of this feature diminishes their ability to make this evaluation. Now on the surface this might actually seem like a good thing. One could conceivably make the argument that by not introducing a source of bias prior to viewing the video, YouTube users are much more likely to give the video a fair evaluation after they watch it. And from this perspective, the decision to hide dislikes almost seems like a no-brainer. And while I definitely agree that YouTube viewers should watch videos for themselves and make their own opinions, and try to be as fair and unbiased as possible when criticizing videos, there are a lot of potential negative consequences of hiding the dislike count, which we'll get into.
If it's a helpful tutorial or not, or if what a creator is saying in their video is generally agreed with or not.
So here's where we start to get into some of the potential negative consequences that can come about from removing the publicly visible dislike count. I've mentioned a moment ago that the biggest problem with removing the dislike count is that it makes it more difficult to assess the quality of a video prior to watching it. Now for most videos this might not necessarily be a problem, but for certain types of videos this could potentially cause some issues. The biggest example of a type of video where a publicly visible dislike count can make a difference are tutorial videos. These are basically videos where somebody explains how to do something. Whether it be cook an omelet, knit a sweater, groom your dog, give your car an oil change, whatever. These particular types of videos, more than any other, rely on the information contained within being accurate. Because if the instructions being relayed in these videos is based on inaccurate information, that can potentially cause serious issues. Especially if the tutorial is regarding something that's high stakes, like legal or medical issues. And unfortunately, as it currently stands, there are quite a few bad tutorial videos on YouTube. These tutorials present bad advice based on bad information. Now sometimes this can be unintentional. Sometimes the person making the tutorial may not just have good information. Maybe they didn't do enough research, or maybe they did all their research using bad sources, and as a result they, in earnest, gave advice that they believed was good. More often than not, however, this is done intentionally. Someone will intentionally make a tutorial telling people to do something bad, knowing that it's bad for a variety of reasons, whether it's to scam people or just to be a troll. I used to work IT help desk before. Quite a fair portion of the tickets we would get would come about because somebody would do something stupid with a computer because of a tutorial they saw on the internet somewhere. Getting rid of the publicly visible dislike count would almost certainly exacerbate this problem, because without a publicly visible dislike count, there's no way for people to evaluate the quality of a video prior to watching it. I mean, I suppose you could look at the comments, but if someone's intentionally making a troll tutorial video to harm others, there's a good chance that they've either disabled comments or removed all the critical comments. A publicly visible rating system won't necessarily prevent any and all harm that could come about from bad tutorial videos, but it definitely will make a lot of potential victims of these videos think twice before giving in to whatever bad advice they give.
But unfortunately, research teams at YouTube have found there's this whole other use for disliking a video.
Some people choose to misuse the feature, therefore nobody gets to use it. Yeah, this is basically gun control logic.
So that I had never experienced as a creator, and you may not have either.
So, spoiler alert, what he's referring to here are dislike bombs. That's basically when a bunch of people flood into a video to try and drive up the dislike count as high as possible. And well, here's the thing, Matt. I have actually experienced it before. I've had not one, but two of my videos dislike bombed before. And guess what? I'm okay. I'm still on the platform, I'm still making content, my channel's still growing. Dislike bombs really aren't that big of a deal in the grand scheme of things. I think every YouTuber will probably experience them at least once in their YouTube career. However, the folks over at YouTube felt this was a significant enough issue that it warranted immediate attention. Like, really, YouTube, this is the issue you feel needs to be prioritized? Let's see, we have a broken and frequently abused copyright system, we have vague and unclear user guidelines, which frequently results in videos getting demonetized or removed, often with no reason, abysmally poor communication between YouTube and its creators. On the list of all the problems on YouTube's platform that need to be addressed, mass dislikes aren't even in the top 10.
Apparently, groups of viewers are targeting a video's dislike button to drive up the count, turning it into something like a game with a visible scoreboard. And it's usually just because they don't like the creator or what they stand for.
Exactly how big of a problem is this really? Okay, does this happen? I'm sure it does. As a matter of fact, I know for certain it does because I've been on the receiving end of it before. But how frequently does it happen? Of all the dislikes that are left on YouTube videos, how many of those are actually genuine, and how many of them are being left out of spite? I think it would be safe to say that an overwhelming majority of dislikes are left for legitimate reasons, and the number of dislikes left out of spite or animosity only make up a tiny fraction of the overall dislikes being left on YouTube. But even assuming that this is actually a legitimate problem, is getting rid of dislikes altogether really the answer? Like I've mentioned previously, is it really fair to take a feature away from everybody because certain people choose to abuse it? Even assuming that mass dislikes were a legitimate problem that YouTube wanted to address, there are actually tons of solutions they could implement that are way less heavy-handed than getting rid of dislikes altogether. One of which could be make it so that someone has to watch either the entirety or the majority of a video before being able to leave a rating. This would make it so that people would have to actually watch a video and determine for themselves whether it's good or not, as opposed to being able to just go to a video, click dislike, and dip out. And this wouldn't be difficult for YouTube to implement either, since YouTube already keeps track of how much of a video you watch. Another potential solution is to have some sort of an algorithm monitor the dislike numbers on a video, and raise some kind of a flag if it starts behaving abnormally. If a video is receiving a sudden surge in dislikes, and all the dislikers seem to be funneling in from a particular source, that's an indication that targeted harassment could be going on, and YouTube could have some sort of algorithm in place that could detect this and raise a signal. If YouTube can have algorithms that detect if you use 5 seconds of a copyrighted song, then surely they can make an algorithm that detects targeted dislike campaigns. Let me remind you that YouTube is owned by Google. You're telling me that the single largest tech company in the world can't think of a better solution to this other than just slide the problem under the rug and call it a day?
That's a big problem when half of YouTube's mission is to give everyone a voice.
Oh, wait, you serious? Let me laugh even harder.
Yeah, that's right, YouTube. The website that's notorious for demonetizing and removing videos without explanation, and a copyright system that basically gives big corporations carte blanche to take down whatever video they want, has this noble mission to give everyone a voice. And if YouTube's mission really is to give everyone a voice, then what sense does it make to take away a feature that enables YouTube users to quickly and efficiently provide feedback on a video? Kinda seems like you're not giving people a voice there, buddy.
So earlier in 2021, YouTube experimented with making the public dislike count private to see if it would help reduce these coordinated dislike attacks across the platform.
What was the rationale behind this? Do you really think that targeted harassment campaigns are going to stop just because people can't leave a dislike anymore? Because the people who are maliciously targeting content creators are doing a lot more than just leaving a dislike. They're leaving nasty comments, they're tracking them down on every social media platform they're on, they're leaking their personal information. These people will do everything they possibly can to make that content creator's life a living hell. I don't think any trolls out there are going to be sitting there thinking, "Aw, gee, I can't leave a thumbs down on videos anymore. Aw, man, I guess that means I have to stop being an asshole."
And after analysis, they did see a reduction.
A reduction in what? And based on what data? This is a pattern you're going to notice throughout the video. Mr. Covalt is going to try and justify the decision to remove dislikes by pointing to some sort of nebulous data which rather conveniently is not available to the public. The decision on YouTube's part not to make this data publicly available definitely raises an ulterior motive flag. Like what, is there something that YouTube is trying to conceal from the public? You would think that since this data is being used as a pretense to make major alterations to the platform, YouTube would have gone through some sort of effort to make this data publicly available, if for no other reason than to give them something they can cover their ass with when the backlash inevitably rolls in.
So, the update from YouTube is that the dislike button is staying, but the dislike counts will now be private. You can still dislike videos, and that action will be used to tune your own recommendations, but you won't be able to see the dislike count. Only the creator can find it on the back end if they want.
And while you're at it, why not get rid of the like count too? After all, a lot of these same arguments being used to justify getting rid of the dislike count can just as easily be used to argue for getting rid of the like count. If a video has a really low like count compared to the total number of views, couldn't that also cause a lot of embarrassment for the creator? And how do you know there aren't mobs of people out there going around liking bad videos just because they like the person who created it? I mean, if videos getting dislikes they don't deserve is a problem, then surely videos getting likes they didn't earn is also a problem. I personally would much rather have YouTube just get rid of ratings altogether, because when you just show the like count without showing the dislikes, it creates this sort of echo chamber effect that will make videos seem much better than they really are. If someone were to stumble upon a tutorial video that says, hey, shutting off your computer right in the middle of a firmware update will totally make it run faster, and they see that it has 500,000 likes, they may very well be convinced that that's a good video. Unbeknownst to them, the video has 4 million dislikes. At least if you get rid of ratings altogether, you're not actively creating a bias in favor of shitty videos.
Now, a few common questions we saw from the initial experiment. First, without a public dislike count, how can viewers tell if a video is worth watching? Again, I kind of had this question too, but it turns out that while viewers might use the dislike count to give them a sense of a video's worth, when the teams looked at the data across millions of viewers and videos in the experiment, they didn't see a noticeable difference in viewership, regardless of whether they could see the dislike count or not. In other words, it didn't really matter if a video had a lot of dislikes or not, they still watched.
Well, of course they still watched. The only way to actually see the like to dislike ratio is by actually clicking on the video. And whenever you click on the video, YouTube registers that as a watch, regardless of how much of the video you actually watch. For example, let's say that you click on a 2-hour-long video and only watch the first 3 to 4 seconds and X out. Now, you didn't really watch the video, but since you did click on the video, that still registers as a watch in YouTube's metrics. If you want a more accurate way of gauging how dislike ratios impact viewership, a better metric to look at would be watch time or engagement. That is, how much of the video are people on average watching. If a large number of people are dipping out shortly after the start of the video, that's a pretty good indication that you're dealing with a not so good video. So a very clearly more accurate way of assessing how like and dislike ratios impact viewership would be to look at the average watch time for the videos and correlate that to their like and dislike ratios. Now granted, this still isn't going to be 100% accurate. You may still have videos with longer average watch times and more dislikes for a variety of reasons. For example, it's possible someone might come across a video with a high dislike to like ratio and want to watch it out of curiosity just to see what the controversy is about. So yeah, while this may not still be 100% accurate, it'll still give you a general rule of thumb when evaluating how like and dislike ratios impact viewership on a particular video.
Next common question, if creators can still see the dislike count on the back end, how's that any different? They can see it if they look for it inside Studio Analytics under the Engagement tab. But overall, it's much less likely to cause stress and embarrassment if the count isn't visible to the public.
So if someone is psychologically obsessed with their dislike count to the point that they're constantly stressed out about it, do you really think that hiding that dislike count behind a few extra clicks is going to really stop them from looking at it? Not to mention that there are apparently out there browser add-ons and extensions that enable people to see the dislike count anyways, making this entire justification completely pointless. And again, this same argument could be used for hiding the like count as well. I'm sure that having a really low like count on a video can be just as stressful and embarrassing for creators as having a really large dislike count.
And one more common question, is this because YouTube Rewind got lots of dislikes?
No, YouTube Rewind is a red herring. It's a diversion tactic. It's there to make you think that YouTube Rewind getting a lot of dislikes was the motivation behind this decision. So that way you'll settle with that as a plausible reason and not investigate the issue further, which YouTube probably doesn't want you to do, and I wonder why.
No, although there are some teams internally who have learned the hard way what it feels like to get lots of dislikes.
Yeah, getting lots of dislikes on your video definitely isn't a fun experience. Seeing videos that you put a lot of hard work and time into creating, getting slammed with dislikes, can actually be a pretty tough experience to go through. But getting videos slammed with dislikes might actually not be such a bad thing for creators after all. To explain why, let's take a look back at my most disliked video. This video right here, the one where I respond to Professor Stick making arguments against computing forever on mandatory face masks, is as of currently my most disliked video. As of the recording of this video, it currently has over 400 dislikes compared to just above 40 likes. And it got slammed with dislikes pretty hard and pretty quickly. And looking back on it, I can kind of understand why people may feel this isn't the best video. Watching it again after all this time kind of makes me realize there's a lot of issues with it. For example, sometimes I go off on unrelated tangents and kind of ramble on for a bit. I don't fully explain and elaborate on the data that I'm using to justify my arguments. On the whole, it would seem like in that video I was more focused on venting my frustration about being forced to wear a mask everywhere, rather than formulating coherent and cohesive arguments. I still stand behind all the beliefs and arguments I put forward in that video, but given the opportunity to do it again from scratch, I would most likely make some adjustments, do certain things differently. Here's the important thing to take away from this, however. Had this video not gotten slammed with dislikes the way it did, I might not have realized there was anything wrong with it, and therefore wouldn't have taken the time to reevaluate it the way that I did. As a matter of fact, if I only ever saw the like count on it, I may have actually just assumed that the video is perfectly fine and there's nothing wrong with it because people are liking it. And that's why an open rating system is a very important thing for a platform featuring user-created content. Not just for viewers to evaluate what they're about to watch, but also for creators to evaluate what they've created. While getting lots of dislikes on a video might be hurtful for content creators, it can also serve as a good wake-up call or reality check, an opportunity to reevaluate the video and learn from it. If all creators ever got on their video was positive feedback, they would never be challenged to improve their content and therefore would never grow as a creator. While having your videos panned and heavily criticized might not be fun, it's an important part of the process of growing as a content creator.
Now, this again is about protecting all creators and making sure they have a chance to succeed and feel safe in doing so.
Safe from what? A number going up on a screen? If you're the kind of person who gets bothered or agitated by a number on a screen going up, then this isn't for you. I mean, I've gotten shit a lot worse than dislikes. I've gotten comments saying all kinds of nasty shit about me. And I'm just a small channel of like 300 subscribers. Even bigger channels have to deal with even more public scrutiny and even shit like death threats and having their personal information leaked. Being a content creator means putting a target on your back for criticism. If you can't handle that, well then it's not for you. I don't understand why YouTube feels the need to kowtow to snowflakes who can't handle criticism. Like, what's the point of robbing the entire platform of a quick and easy way to evaluate the quality of videos, just to appease a small minority of snowflakes? At the very least, why not make it an option instead of imposing this onto every YouTube creator? Like, if someone wants to be a butthurt little snowflake and completely shield themselves from all negative criticism by disabling comments and ratings, then that's fine. They can go ahead and do that. I mean, I personally don't recommend it, but if someone wants to do that, then sure, give them that option. Me personally, I would much rather have my dislike counts, even on my most disliked videos, open and available to the public. I can handle criticism, and I don't think I have anything to hide.
All right, so that's the update. I hope it doesn't cause too much frustration.
That ship has sailed, my dude.
And honestly, I think you're going to get used to it pretty quickly.
The go-to default excuse that anybody can fall back on when they want to roll out something stupid is, hey, don't worry, you'll get used to it eventually. It's a nifty and convenient way to hand-wave away criticisms because, yeah, I mean, it is technically true. Eventually there will come a point when you'll just kind of be used to it and won't bother you so much. But that doesn't make it a good idea. For example, let's say that all of the higher-ups at YouTube who are responsible for making this decision had their office space moved into a horse stable. So they get to do all their work with no air conditioning and the smell of hay and shit everywhere. Eventually, they will get used to it. It won't seem so bad anymore. But that doesn't mean it's a good idea.
And keep in mind, other platforms don't even have a dislike button.
Hey, pal. You just blowing from Stupid Town?
Really, bruh? That's the excuse you're going with? We don't need no stinking dislike button, cause other platforms don't have one. This is such a dumb excuse. Like, what if Amazon got rid of their payment processing system and then tried justifying it by saying, well, other websites don't have a payment processing system? Yeah, different platforms have different functionalities and therefore require different features. A feature that might be necessary on one platform might not necessarily be necessary on another. It's a complete non sequitur to bring up what features other platforms may or may not have when the issue at hand is regarding YouTube specifically.
So consider that. Thank you, and I hope you're well.
So now that the video's over, let's get into the meat and potatoes of the issue. Let's discuss the million-dollar question that's been on everybody's mind since this decision was rolled out, and that is, why? Why would YouTube, on a whim, for seemingly no reason, all of a sudden just get rid of a feature that's been part of the platform for the past decade, a feature that users of the platform have grown accustomed to, a feature that worked perfectly fine and wasn't causing any issues? Why would YouTube just get rid of that? Especially considering all the backlash this decision has created. I mean, nobody on the platform was asking for this, so why did YouTube do it? Because the reasons given in the video are flimsy at best, and most users of the platform aren't really buying it. It's clear that there's some sort of ulterior motive here. Something behind the scenes going on that YouTube doesn't want to tell us. But what? Well, as it turns out, there's actually plenty of theories and speculation as to the actual reason YouTube decided to get rid of the dislikes. Initially, I thought this may have been for social justice, snowflake coddling purposes. You know, YouTube trying to avoid hurting people's feelings. But upon additional consideration, I've ruled this out as a possibility. Because if this were the intention, then YouTube would have most likely just gotten rid of the dislike feature altogether. What's the point of keeping the back-end functionality of the dislike? And why not get rid of like counts too? After all, having a low like count on a video could also conceivably hurt people's feelings. And why make the dislike count hidden on all videos instead of giving creators the option? I have a theory that sort of addresses each of these questions. Here's what I think it is. I think this is a marketing strategy by YouTube. I think this is a ploy by YouTube to get more large corporations to use their platform. Because the types of videos that are most commonly disliked are usually advertisements and promotional material for products and services that suck. For example, the Ghostbusters 2016 trailer. So if YouTube can provide these big corporations a platform where they can show their promotional material such that only positive feedback will be visible by the public, their internal marketing teams will still have access to the accurate ratings, and have these changes rolled out site-wide so that way they won't be singled out for being shady, that can make their platform potentially seem real appealing to potential big corporate partners. I think this is just another step in a de-democratization of YouTube, a shift in power away from ordinary YouTube users like you and me to big corporations. And if YouTube continues down that path, then they could easily lose whatever advantage they have over traditional mainstream media. I'm going to go ahead and close out this video with a message to YouTube. Look, fellas, either have a rating system or don't. If you want to pander to snowflakes who can't handle criticism and axe ratings altogether, I don't personally recommend it, but it's your platform, it's your decision, fine. But if you're not going to have ratings, then don't have ratings. Don't give people an echo chamber where they can only see the positive feedback. What long-term effects this decision will have on the platform, time will only tell. But I think I can speak for my fellow YouTubers when I say, our platform's probably in for a bumpy ride. This has been Flossopossum making stupidity play dead. Until next time, take care.